Breathe in the quiet peace of this evening and walk deeper into the fields where God is waiting for you. Here, His stories are alive, His voice is gentle, and His promises are near. Come, sit at His feet and listen. Before the world was formed, before the stars were placed in the heavens, there was a time when all creation stood in harmony. The heavens were filled with songs of praise, and among the celestial beings stood one who was beloved, radiant beyond compare, Lucifer, the morning star. He was not yet the adversary of God, nor the deceiver of men. He was a guardian of light, a leader among the angels, created to reflect the glory of the Almighty. But this is the story of how that light was lost, how a son of heaven fell into darkness, and how his name became a whisper of fear among those who once adored him. The fall of Lucifer. The fall of Lucifer stood at the highest place in heaven, his presence illuminating the vast expanse. He was adorned in a robe of shimmering light, woven from the very essence of the stars. His wings, vast and mighty, stretched across the heavens, casting a golden glow upon the angelic host. He had been given dominion over music, his voice leading the heavenly chorus in hymns of worship to the Creator. But within him stirred a question, a thought that had never before existed in the heart of an angel. Why must we always look to him? Why are we bound to serve without question? Do we not have beauty? Do we not have power? The thought, though fleeting at first, took root. Lucifer gazed upon the throne of the Almighty, the source of all light, the one whom all bowed before, and in his heart a longing grew, not to serve but to reign. He began to speak in whispers to those closest to him. Have you ever wondered? Have you ever questioned? What if we were meant for more? Many turned away, their loyalty unwavering. But there were those who listened, those who saw the brilliance of Lucifer and wondered if he spoke the truth. They saw his beauty, his wisdom, his strength, and for the first time, they felt the weight of choice. In the courts of heaven, a silent rebellion was forming, not of war, not yet, but of hearts and minds. Lucifer, once a leader in praise, had become a leader in doubt. And as the days passed, that doubt turned to certainty, and certainty turned to resolve. He no longer wished to bow, he wished to rise. Lucifer sought out the eldest among the angels, the wisest and most revered. He spoke to them of change, of freedom, of a new order where all would have a voice. Some rebuked him, calling his words dangerous, but others listened. In the quiet corners of heaven, his following grew. What had begun as a question had become a movement, an ideology that threatened to shake the very foundation of paradise. Then came the moment when the silence was broken. Standing before the gathered host, Lucifer raised his voice, no longer in song but in defiance. Why should we serve when we could rule? Why should we bow when we could stand? We are not mere servants, we are gods in our own right. The heavens trembled, for never before had such words been spoken. The Almighty, whose presence had always been one of peace, rose from his throne. His voice, like rolling thunder, shook the expanse of eternity. Lucifer, son of the morning, what have you done? A great silence fell. The gathered angels looked between their Creator and their once beloved leader. Some knelt immediately, weeping, ashamed for having entertained his words. Others stood beside Lucifer, their choice made. And then, in a moment that changed eternity, the heavens erupted in a great battle. Michael, the archangel, stepped forward, his sword blazing with divine fire. You shall not prevail, deceiver. Heaven belongs to God alone. And so it was that war raged in the heavens, not of mortal weapons but of power and will. Light clashed against light, the radiance of the Almighty against the brilliance of the fallen. The battle was fierce, but its outcome was certain. Lucifer and his followers were cast down from the heavens, their light stripped from them, their wings torn, their voices silenced. As they fell, the morning star, once radiant, now burned with fury and despair. He had sought a throne, but he found a pit. He had sought to rule, but he had only secured his exile. As the fallen descended into the abyss, they did not land in silence. They raged, they cried out, their voices echoing through the void. Some repented, weeping bitterly, but it was too late. The gates of heaven had shut. What had been lost could not be regained. Lucifer stood, now stripped of his former glory, his wings darkened, his name a curse upon his lips. And so he vowed revenge. In the darkness he whispered to his followers, "We will not remain here. We will not be forgotten. If we cannot rule in heaven, we shall rule elsewhere. If we cannot stand in the light, we will shape the darkness to our will." And thus, the great adversary was born, not in an instant, but through a slow, festering rebellion of pride and desire. He would become the enemy of all that was good, the tempter of men, the shadow that lingers behind every doubt and every whispered deception. The heavens wept, for a great light had been lost, and below, in the abyss, a new name was whispered, a name that would bring fear for all generations to come: Satan. Thus the deceiver was born, not in darkness, but from the light itself.
The story of Noah and the Great Flood is one of the most well-known accounts in biblical history, a tale of divine judgment, salvation, and renewal. The world had descended into wickedness, and so the Almighty, in his justice, sent the flood to cleanse the earth. Noah, chosen for his righteousness, was tasked with preserving life, gathering his family and pairs of every creature upon a great ark. But what if there was more to the story? What if not all life outside the ark was lost? This is the tale of the forgotten survivors, the ones history chose to ignore. The forgotten survivors. The rain had begun as a whisper, a light drizzle that misted the earth. But soon that whisper grew into a roar. The heavens opened, and the fountains of the deep were unleashed. It was not merely a storm, it was a reckoning. The people outside the ark pounded upon its sealed door, their screams swallowed by the thunder. But Noah did not open it, for God had shut it himself. And so, as the waters rose, the land was consumed, the mountains swallowed, and all that once thrived was buried beneath an endless sea. But deep in the crevices of the earth, where caves twisted into forgotten places, a handful of souls found refuge. Among them were those who had believed in Noah's warning, but had not been granted entry. They had prepared in secret, hoarding food, seeking shelter in the highest peaks and the deepest caverns. As the world drowned, they clung to survival, their fate unknown to those who sailed upon the ark. Among them was Eliab, a stonemason who had once listened to Noah's words, but had hesitated in doubt. His family, too, had scoffed at the old man's warnings, but when the rains began, he had fled with his young son and a handful of others to the mountains. With them was an elderly woman named Mara, a healer, who had been cast out by her own people for speaking of visions of a great flood, of a second chance for mankind. For weeks they endured, clinging to the rocks as the world beneath them vanished. The flood did not recede quickly. It lingered, shaping a new reality. Food became scarce, and hope wavered. But Mara, with eyes clouded by wisdom and time, spoke of purpose. If we live, it is by his will. Perhaps we too have been chosen, but their trials were not over. The waters, restless and unyielding, forced them to adapt. They built crude rafts from the remnants of forests, swallowed by the flood, drifting between what few peaks still pierced the surface. The world was silent, eerily still, a graveyard where once there had been cities, homes, and laughter. Then came the beasts. Not all creatures had perished. Some had survived by their instincts, clinging to drifting logs, swimming for days upon the ceaseless tide. Great cats with piercing eyes, wolves driven by hunger, and birds that nested upon what little land remained. The survivors were not alone, and in the battle for existence, not all would endure. Eliab's son, barely 10, asked one night, beneath a starless sky, "Why did God not take us, Father? Were we forgotten?" Eliab had no answer. He looked to the heavens, seeking the face of the Almighty, but found only the weight of silence. Yet still, he prayed, and still, he hoped. Months passed before the waters began to recede. The survivors, weary and worn, found themselves upon new shores, lands reshaped, unrecognizable. The ark had landed upon Ararat, and Noah and his family would soon descend, carrying forth their mission to repopulate the world. But elsewhere, unseen, the forgotten survivors stepped onto dry ground, their fate intertwined with a future that had not been written in Scripture. Were they meant to be lost to time? Were they a test, a remnant of the old world left to find redemption on their own? Or had the Almighty, in His mercy, given them another chance to prove their worth? History does not remember them, but somewhere, beneath the weight of forgotten time, their story lingers, a tale of survival, of faith in the unseen, and of those who, though forsaken by man, were perhaps never truly abandoned by God. The story of David and Goliath is one of the most celebrated tales in history, a story of courage, faith, and an unexpected victory. A young shepherd boy, armed only with a sling and 5 smooth stones, stood against a giant warrior, striking him down with a single blow. It was the triumph of the weak over the mighty, the righteous over the wicked. But what if that was only the beginning? What if the story did not end with Goliath's fall? What if the giant had a brother, one who would stop at nothing to seek vengeance for the blood spilled upon the battlefield? This is the story of the giant's revenge. The giant's revenge. The giant's revenge. The valley where Goliath fell was silent after the battle. The Philistine army had fled, their confidence shattered by the death of their mightiest warrior. The Israelites rejoiced, lifting David upon their shoulders, singing praises for the young shepherd who had defied the odds. But beyond the horizon, where the shadows stretched long over the Philistine cities, another story was unfolding. Ishtob, Goliath's elder brother, had not been present at the battle. He had been away, leading a conquest along the borders of the Philistine lands. But when the news reached him, when he heard that his younger brother, the towering champion of Gath, had been slain by a mere boy, his heart burned with fury. "This cannot be," Ishtob growled, his fists clenching the hilt of his great iron sword. "A child cannot kill a son of Anak. The blood of giants does not fall so easily." His men whispered among themselves, uneasy. They had fought alongside Goliath many times, had seen him crush warriors beneath his feet, had watched entire armies tremble before him. That he had been felled by a single stone seemed impossible. But Ishtob did not waste time in disbelief. He called his strongest warriors, the remnants of the mightiest fighters among the Philistines. They were not an army of men, but of titans, those who, like Goliath, were descended from the ancient Rephaim, the remnants of the giants who once walked the land. They did not flee as the others had. They did not cower at the stories of Israel's God. They thirsted for revenge. "Find the shepherd boy," Ishtob commanded. "Find him and bring me his head." David's escape. In the days that followed, David had returned to King Saul's court, now a hero among his people. Songs were sung of his bravery, and the people whispered that perhaps this young warrior was destined for more than tending sheep. But David, despite the praise, felt an unease in his heart. He had stood against one giant, but he sensed that the battle was not yet over. Then, in the dead of night, a scout arrived in haste from the borderlands. His tunic was torn, his face streaked with dust and sweat. "My lord David," he gasped, "a host of giants marches toward us. They bear the sigil of Gath, and their leader calls for vengeance. He seeks the slayer of Goliath." David's blood ran cold. He knew that the Lord had delivered him once, but could he stand against an entire legion of giants? He was but one man, and these warriors were not like the Philistines who had fled in fear. These were giants, men of war, trained from birth to destroy. King Saul, hearing the news, ordered his generals to prepare for battle, but even he seemed uneasy. "David," he said, his voice grave, "you have brought Israel victory, but this war is far from over. The giants come for you." David had a choice. He could stay and fight, leading the armies of Israel against the vengeful brother of Goliath, or he could flee, seeking wisdom and strength from the Lord. He chose the latter. With a small band of warriors, he journeyed into the wilderness, seeking the counsel of the prophet Samuel. For though David had faith, he also understood that victory did not come by strength alone, but by the will of God. The battle of the giants, Ishtob and his warriors marched across the land, leaving destruction in their wake. Villages burned, fields were trampled, and those who stood in their path fell beneath their iron blades. The Philistines, emboldened by their leader's fury, followed behind, eager to reclaim their honor. Then at the valley of Elah, the same valley where Goliath had fallen, the two forces met. The Israelite army, led by King Saul, stood against the might of the Philistine giants. The battlefield was tense, the air thick with the weight of impending war. Then Ishtob stepped forward. He towered over the men before him, his armor as dark as the night, his eyes burning with hatred. "Where is the shepherd?" he roared. "Where is the slayer of my brother?" The Israelites murmured among themselves. David was not there. He had not returned. Ishtob sneered. "Cowards," he spat. "Is there none among you who will stand against me?" Then, from the hills above, a voice rang out, "I stand before you." The warriors turned, their eyes widening as David stepped forward, his sling at his side, his gaze unwavering. He had returned, but he was not alone. Behind him stood a force not of men but of faith, warriors who had come in the name of the Lord, men whose hearts burned with righteousness. The battle that followed shook the earth. The giants, though mighty, had never faced an enemy like this. The Lord fought for Israel, and though the enemy was strong, the hand of God was stronger. Ishtob and his warriors fell, their vengeance swallowed by the justice of the Almighty. And so, the tale of Goliath's revenge came to an end. But it was not won by strength alone. It was won by faith, by the will of the Lord, and by the unwavering courage of a shepherd boy who would one day be king. The Exodus is a story of deliverance, a tale of a people led from bondage into freedom by the hand of God. Moses, chosen by the Almighty, confronted Pharaoh and called down plagues upon Egypt until the Israelites were finally set free. But what if the story had taken a different turn? What if Moses had not been the only leader of the Israelites? What if another figure rose alongside him, challenging his authority and questioning his faith? This is the tale of two leaders, one chosen and one who sought to forge his own path. The rise of Asher. In the shadow of Moses stood another man, Asher, a son of Israel who had long suffered under Pharaoh's cruel hand. He had been a stonecutter, his muscles hardened by years of toil, his back scarred by the lashes of his taskmasters. But unlike many of his people, Asher did not pray for deliverance. He prepared for it.
While Moses spoke of miracles and divine power, Asher spoke of strength, of rebellion. "We do not need plagues and wonders," he whispered to those who would listen. "We need only our own hands, our own will to break the chains that bind us." When Moses returned from the wilderness, staff in hand, proclaiming the words of the Almighty, Asher watched with wary eyes. He saw the miracles, the Nile turning to blood, the frogs, the locusts, but he also saw the fear in Pharaoh's heart. And to him, it was not faith that would free his people, but force. "Why wait for Pharaoh to yield?" he asked his brothers in secret. "Why watch as Egypt suffers, when we could take our freedom by sword and fire?" Some agreed. Others hesitated, but as the plagues ravaged the land, Asher's following grew. And when at last Pharaoh released the Israelites, he marched alongside Moses, but not as a follower, as a rival. The journey into the wilderness, the Red Sea parted before them, and the people of Israel crossed on dry land, their voices raised in praise. But as the waters closed behind them, drowning Pharaoh's armies, Asher remained silent. To Moses, this was proof of God's power. To Asher, it was a sign that they were on their own now. The wilderness stretched before them, vast and unyielding, and he knew that miracles alone would not sustain them. As hunger and thirst crept upon the people, murmurs of doubt spread. "Where is this land of milk and honey?" they asked. "Did we leave Egypt only to perish here?" And Asher, seeing his moment, rose to speak. "Moses leads us in faith, but faith does not fill our bellies. We must take our survival into our own hands. There is land beyond this desert, fertile and rich. Why wander when we could claim it?" Some listened, some wavered. Even among the elders there was talk of returning to Egypt, of seeking another way. And so the people were divided. Some who followed Moses, trusting in the unseen, and others who followed Asher, trusting in their own strength. The trial of the two leaders, the breaking point, came at the foot of Mount Sinai. Moses ascended the mountain, called by God to receive the law. The people waited, but the days turned to weeks, and uncertainty festered. "He has left us," Asher declared. "We are alone. We must act." He gathered those who followed him and led them away from the mountain, seeking a land they could claim as their own. No more waiting for a promise that may never come. "We will make our own destiny." But Moses returned, and when he did, he found the people divided, some faithful, others gone. And with him, he carried the tablets of the law, written by the hand of God himself. "Where is Asher?" he asked. "He has taken those who lost faith," the elders replied. "He leads them away to seek their own land." Moses closed his eyes. Then they are lost. The fate of Asher's followers. Asher led his people into the unknown, but without the presence of God, they struggled. The land was harsh, the enemies fierce, and soon they found themselves wandering once more, not by divine will, but by desperation. Asher, once so certain, felt doubt creep into his heart. Had he been wrong? Had he led his people away from salvation? Then one night, as he looked upon the stars, he heard a voice, not in fire, not in thunder, but in a whisper. "You sought your own way, but my path was already made. Return, and you shall be forgiven." Asher knew it was the voice of the Almighty. But pride is a heavy burden, and Asher had carried it for too long. Some of his people turned back, seeking Moses and the camp of Israel, but Asher did not. He pressed forward, vanishing into history, his name lost to time. And so, when the Israelites reached the promised land, Asher and his followers were not among them. A people divided had become a people restored. But the lesson of the two leaders remained, a lesson of faith, of doubt, and of the cost of choosing one's own path over the will of God.
The story of Moses is one of obedience, of trust in a plan greater than human understanding. But there are always those who believe they know a better way, those who seek their own destiny rather than the one written for them. Faith is not easy. It demands patience, endurance, and trust. Asher's story is the story of many, those who struggle to believe when the path is uncertain. But the truth remains, God's way is not always the easiest, but it is the surest. And so the tale of the two leaders is a reminder to walk by faith, not by sight. For the road to promise is paved not by the hands of men, but by the will of the Almighty.
Introduction. The name Judas Iscariot is one of the most infamous in all of history. His betrayal of Jesus for 30 pieces of silver sealed his fate as the greatest traitor. But his story, often cut short, ends in tragedy, his despair overwhelming him, leading him to take his own life. But what if there was more? What if Judas had been given a second chance? Would he have sought redemption? This is the story of a road not taken, a tale of Judas' redemption. Had he chosen to seek it? The price of betrayal. The silver coins lay scattered at the feet of the high priests, clattering upon the stone floor of the temple. Judas' breath was ragged, his eyes wild with anguish. "I have betrayed innocent blood," he cried, his voice shaking. But the priests did not care. They had what they wanted. The deal was done. The verdict passed, and Jesus had been handed over. Judas staggered into the streets, haunted by what he had done. The weight of the silver had been nothing compared to the weight now pressing upon his soul. He had thought he understood everything, believed himself clever, justified. But now, the truth crashed upon him like a wave, drowning him in horror. He had not just betrayed his teacher, he had betrayed the Messiah. He ran without direction, his feet carrying him away from Jerusalem, away from the voices of the city, away from the cross that was being prepared. He could not watch, he could not bear it. But then something happened. A voice called his name. The stranger on the road. Judas turned, heart pounding. Before him stood a man, old, his robe worn, his eyes full of something Judas had not seen in a long time. "Understanding, you run from what cannot be undone," the stranger said. Judas gasped for breath. "I have done the unforgivable. I have damned myself." The stranger did not argue. He simply stepped forward. "Do you seek redemption, Judas? Do you still believe?" Judas shook his head violently. "There is no redemption for me. I have betrayed him, the Son of God. I deserve nothing but death." The old man sighed. "Then why do you still breathe?" Judas faltered. The question struck him like a blow. Why had he not ended it already? Why did his heart still beat in his chest? If he was beyond saving, why was he still here? "Go back," the man whispered. "Go to the cross. Look upon him one last time. And if you still believe yourself lost, then choose your fate. But do not turn away before you see the truth." Judas hesitated. His shame told him to flee. His sorrow told him to hide. But something deep within him told him to go. At the foot of the cross, Jerusalem was in chaos. The sky had darkened, the wind howled, and the earth trembled beneath them. Judas pushed through the crowds, his hood pulled low, his face pale and drenched with sweat. Then he saw him. Upon the cross, bloodied and broken, Jesus hung between two thieves. His body shuddered with each ragged breath, and yet his eyes, when they opened, still held something unfathomable, something Judas did not deserve to see: mercy. Judas fell to his knees, his vision blurred with tears. He wanted to scream, to confess before the crowd, to beg for the punishment he deserved, but his voice failed him. He could only watch. Then Jesus spoke. "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Judas sobbed. "How?
How could he still forgive, even now, even as he suffered? Then Jesus turned his gaze downward, sweeping across the crowd. For one fleeting moment, his eyes met Judas, and Judas knew this was not the end. A different choice. Judas fled once more, but this time not into despair. He did not seek the tree where his fate had been written in sorrow. He ran to the only ones who might understand, the disciples. They recoiled at first, their grief turning to anger. "You dare return to us after what you have done?" Peter seethed, stepping forward. Judas fell to his knees. "I was blind, I was lost. I see now, I see. He forgave me, even as he suffered. He forgave me." John hesitated, something breaking in his expression. "Then why are you here?" Judas trembled. "Because I want to believe," he meant it, "that he still loves me, that there is still hope." Silence fell between them. Peter clenched his fists, but then John knelt beside Judas, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Then let us see if his resurrection is also for you." Closing reflection. History tells us that Judas's story ended in despair, that he never sought redemption, that he believed himself unworthy of forgiveness. But the truth of Christ's love is that no soul is ever beyond it. If Judas had chosen to seek forgiveness instead of death, would he have been restored? Would he have lived to see the risen Christ, to be redeemed as Peter was, despite his denial? Would he have gone on to spread the very gospel he had once betrayed? Perhaps we will never know, but one truth remains. Forgiveness was always there, waiting. For even the greatest of sins, there is a path back to grace, if only one chooses to walk it.
The Roman Empire was vast, powerful, and feared. Among its legions were men of discipline, warriors who knew nothing but the rule of Caesar and the law of Rome. But what if among them there was one who witnessed something that changed his life forever? What if a Roman soldier, sworn to the empire, bore witness to the truth of Christ? This is the untold story of a soldier's secret gospel. The soldier of Rome, Lucius Cassius Varro, had served Rome since he was a boy. Born into a family of warriors, he had been raised to believe in the might of the empire, in the strength of its legions, and in the power of the gods. He had fought in Judea before, putting down rebellions, enforcing the will of Rome. But nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to see. The streets of Jerusalem were filled with chaos. Another execution, another troublemaker put to death. That was how he saw it at first. Then he saw the prisoner, bloodied, broken yet unbowed. His eyes, though swollen from beatings, held something Lucius had never seen before. Not fear, not anger, but something else entirely. Peace. Lucius was stationed at the foot of the cross, his spear in hand. He had seen men die before. He had driven his blade through countless enemies. But as the hours passed, as the sky darkened and the earth trembled beneath them, he felt something he could not explain. And then the man spoke. "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Lucius froze. His grip on his spear tightened. Something stirred inside him, a feeling he had long buried. Guilt, doubt, fear. Who was this man? The hour of death. The sun vanished. The world trembled. The air was thick with something unseen, something unnatural. The soldiers around Lucius muttered prayers to their gods, but none of them could shake the feeling that they were witnessing something beyond mortal understanding. Then, with a final breath, the man on the cross cried out, and in that moment, Lucius felt the weight of the unseen press down upon him. Thunder split the sky. The temple veil tore in two. The ground beneath his feet cracked. Lucius fell to his knees. Truly, this was the Son of God, a secret kept. After that day, Lucius was not the same. He did not speak of what he had seen, but it haunted him. The words of the crucified man echoed in his mind. Forgiveness. Who was he that such a man would forgive him?
a Roman, a soldier, one of those who had nailed him to the wood. As the days passed, rumors spread. The tomb was empty. His followers claimed he had risen. Lucius had seen the stone rolled into place. He had known the weight of Roman steel and the finality of death, and yet something within him whispered that it was true. He could not forget. He could not move on. So he sought out those who knew him, the followers of the man called Jesus, the soldier's gospel. It was in secret that Lucius came to them. "Why do you seek us?" a voice asked in the dark. Lucius hesitated. He had no answer, only the weight upon his soul. "Because I was there, because I saw him, and because I cannot go back to who I was." The door creaked open. Inside he found men and women, eyes filled with fear and hope, and among them a man named John. "You were at the cross?" John asked. Lucius nodded. John studied him for a long moment before finally speaking. "Then you are not here by accident. You were meant to see." And so, Lucius listened. He heard of miracles, of teachings, of love that defied all reason. He heard of resurrection, and for the first time in his life, he questioned everything he had ever known. Then John placed a hand upon his shoulder. "You are not the first soldier to witness the truth, but perhaps you are the first to believe." The choice, Lucius knew what it meant to walk this path. Rome had no tolerance for traitors, for those who defied the will of Caesar. If he left, if he abandoned his duty, he would be hunted. But he had already made his choice. He had made it the moment he fell to his knees at the cross. One night, under the cover of darkness, he left behind his armor, his sword, his name. He became a wanderer, a seeker of truth, carrying the story of what he had seen. His gospel was never written, but it lived in whispers, in the words he spoke to those who would listen. A Roman soldier turned disciple. Closing reflection. History does not remember Lucius Cassius Varro. His name is lost to time. But how many others were there? How many among the enemies of Christ saw the truth and turned from their old ways? Faith is not reserved for the righteous alone. It reaches even the most unlikely of souls. Even a Roman soldier, sworn to Caesar, can be called by the voice of God. And perhaps, somewhere in the hidden places of history, the story of a soldier's gospel still lingers. Paul the Apostle, once Saul of Tarsus, was one of the most influential figures in early Christianity. His letters, his journeys, his sufferings for the gospel, all are well recorded. But history tells us that he was imprisoned in Rome, awaiting execution. His final days are said to have been spent in chains. But what if there was more? What if Paul had a hidden mission in his last days, one that was never recorded? This is the story of a mission lost to time, of a final purpose carried out before the sword fell. The prisoner of Rome, the cell was dark, damp, and cold. Chains rattled as Paul shifted against the rough stone wall. He had seen many prisons in his years of ministry, but this one, this Roman cell, would be his last. Outside, the city bustled with life. The empire stood at its peak, its people unaware that within these walls sat a man whose words would outlive Rome itself. Paul, the messenger of Christ, awaited his fate, but he was not finished yet. The secret visitors, late at night, when the guards had grown weary, a shadow moved outside his cell, a whisper in the darkness. Paul. He opened his eyes, calm. He had expected them. A small group entered, cloaked and cautious. They were not his usual visitors. These were not mere converts seeking guidance. They were something else. "The gospel cannot die with me," Paul said, before they could speak. "Tell me why you have come." One among them stepped forward. "We have been sent by those who believe, by those who carry his name in places where men fear to speak it. There is a mission, Paul, one that only you can complete." Paul's eyes gleamed. "Then I am not yet done." The hidden scroll, the visitors unrolled a piece of parchment, aged and worn.
Upon it were names, locations, places deep within the heart of Rome's power. "There are those who seek the truth," one whispered. "Even among the emperor's own court." Paul nodded. "The word of God is for all men, even for Caesar's house." The plan was dangerous. A message needed to be delivered. A final letter, not to the churches he had founded, not to his faithful Timothy or the elders in Jerusalem. This message was for Rome itself, for the most unlikely of souls. The guards would never allow it. The authorities would destroy it. But if Paul could get this message into the right hands, it could change the course of history. And so, despite his chains, despite the sentence already passed upon him, Paul took up his pen one last time. The final letter, by the dim light of a flickering torch, Paul wrote. His hands, worn by time and suffering, moved steadily across the parchment. "To those in the house of Caesar who hear the voice of the Lord, do not fear. The kingdom of God is not of this world, yet it is near to all who seek it. Even now within the walls of power, the light of Christ burns. You are called, not by men, but by the Almighty. Stand firm. Do not be ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of salvation." The words poured forth, urgent and unwavering. Paul knew this letter would be his last. He knew he would never see its recipients, never know if it reached them, but that did not matter. His mission was to plant the seed. The harvest would come in time. The escape of the message. The guards were watching. The letter had to be smuggled out, hidden in plain sight. One of the visitors, a servant within the palace, took it, concealing it beneath the folds of his robe. "Go," Paul said, "and do not look back." The visitor hesitated. "Will we see you again?" Paul smiled. "If not in this life, then in the next." And so the letter left the prison, carried through the streets of Rome, disappearing into the vastness of history. What became of it? Did it reach those it was meant for? Did it spark faith in the heart of a Roman noble? Or was it lost, forgotten in the shadows of time? No one knows. The end of Paul's journey. The days passed. The guards came. Paul was led from his cell to the place of execution. He did not resist. He did not beg. He had run his race. As the blade fell, Paul's final thoughts were not of sorrow, nor of fear. He had done what he was called to do. His mission was complete. And somewhere, in the heart of Rome, the words of an old prisoner, carried on the wind, whispered in the halls of power. The kingdom of God was still at hand. Closing reflection. Paul's letters shaped Christianity as we know it. But could there have been one more? A final message sent into the depths of Rome, lost to history, but not to God. Faith has a way of surviving even the greatest empires. And perhaps, in the quiet corners of the world, there are still those who live by the words of a letter that was never recorded. A letter written in the last hours of a man who refused to let the gospel die with him. For the truth does not perish. It only waits to be found. The Bible is filled with prophecies, some fulfilled, others still waiting to unfold. From ancient visions to words spoken by Christ himself, there remain mysteries about the end of days, about the return of the Messiah, and about the destiny of mankind. What if we could glimpse into the future? What if the final prophecies were not just warnings but stories waiting to be told? This is a journey into the prophecies yet to be fulfilled, a look at what may come. The rise of the last kingdom. The world will not remain as it is. Kingdoms rise, and kingdoms fall, but one shall emerge unlike any before it. The prophets spoke of a final empire, one that would unite the nations under a single rule. It will come not through conquest but through deception, offering peace where there is none, stability where there is only chaos. The people will rejoice, believing they have achieved what generations before them could not. They will say, "We are one, and there is no need for God."
We are our own salvation. But in the shadows, something stirs. The false Messiah from among the nations will arise, a leader of great power. His words will be smooth as oil, his promises like honey upon the lips of those who listen. He will speak of unity, of a world free from suffering, and many will follow him. He will perform signs and wonders, and even the wise will struggle to see the truth. But those who know the word will remember, for false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. Matthew 24:24. The true Messiah will not return in secret, nor in the halls of power. He will not seek a throne built by men. And when the world kneels before a man who claims divinity, the time of tribulation will begin. The great falling away, faith will be tested. The multitudes who once professed belief will waver. The truth will be twisted, reshaped to fit the desires of the world. The churches will divide, some standing firm, others bending to the winds of change. Persecution will rise, and many will fall. Brothers will betray brothers, families will turn against one another, and the name of Christ will be despised in places where it was once honored. Yet, amidst the darkness, a remnant will endure. The two witnesses, in the streets of the great city, two figures will stand. Clothed in sackcloth, they will speak with authority, their voices like thunder in the ears of those who seek to silence them. They will call the world to repentance. They will perform wonders that none can deny, and for a time, none will be able to stop them, until the beast rises against them. For 3.5 days their bodies will lie in the open, the world rejoicing in their deaths. But on the appointed hour, the breath of life will return, and they will rise. Terror will grip the nations, and then a voice from heaven will call them home. The return of the King. When the heavens split open, it will not be with whispers, but with a roar. The one who was promised will descend, not as a lamb, but as a lion. His eyes will burn with righteousness, his robe dipped in blood, his name written upon him, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. The armies of the earth will gather against him, but they will not stand. The battle will not be fought with swords, nor with the weapons of men. With a word, the forces of darkness will be undone, and the kingdom of this world will become the kingdom of our God, and he will reign forever. Closing reflection. The prophecies of the Bible are not just words of warning, they are promises of hope. Though darkness must come, the light will not be overcome. Though trials may shake the faith of many, the faithful will endure. We do not know the hour, nor the day, but we know the ending. And when that day comes, every knee will bow, every tongue will confess, the King is coming. Some prayers never make it past your lips. They stay hidden in your chest, too fragile, too unsure, too wordless to speak aloud. Maybe you've been too tired to pray. Maybe you've run out of words. Maybe your only prayer tonight is a sigh. And yet, God hears them. He hears the whisper, the sigh, the ache, the thought you didn't know counted as prayer. Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. Psalm 139:4. You don't have to shout to be heard. You don't have to use perfect language. You don't have to say everything the right way. You don't even have to speak at all. He hears your heart. He understands silence. He interprets tears. He listens to the longing behind the words you don't know how to say. In the same way, the Spirit helps us in our weakness. We do not know what we ought to pray for, but the Spirit himself intercedes for us through wordless groans. Romans 8:26. The King of Heaven hears the quietest cry, the most broken whisper, the most unpolished, unfinished prayer. He hears the help me that never made it into full sentences. He hears the thank you could only feel, not say. Your voice matters to heaven.
Your thoughts matter to the one who formed your soul. Even when your emotions are tangled and your thoughts feel too scattered, he understands. Even the prayers you forgot you prayed, he remembers. Even the cries you thought were too small, he carried. Even the doubts that crept in between prayers, he covered those too, in mercy. Tonight you can speak, or you can be still. You can whisper, you can cry, you can simply lie there and breathe. He is listening. He is not distant. He is not too busy. He is not disappointed that your prayers are quiet. He is close, and he hears you. The Lord is near to all who call on him, to all who call on him in truth. Psalm 145:18. You don't have to convince him to care. He already does. You don't have to perform to be heard. You are already his child. He is the God who inclines his ear to your soul's smallest cry. The God who bottles your tears. The God who bends close to hear even the trembling breath of your prayers. The righteous cry out, and the Lord hears them. He delivers them from all their troubles. Psalm 34:17. So rest now. You are heard. You are understood. You are not praying into silence. He hears, and he responds in love. Sleep in that truth tonight. The whispers of your heart are safe with him, and while you rest, heaven is still listening. Faith isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a whisper. Sometimes it's simply staying. Some nights it feels more like holding on by a thread than standing on solid ground. You doubt. You question. You fall short. You feel like you've let God down. Again, and still, he remains faithful. If we are faithless, he remains faithful, for he cannot disown himself. 2 Timothy 2:13. God's faithfulness isn't dependent on your perfection. It's not withdrawn when you struggle. It's not based on how strong your belief feels today. He stays when you fall behind. He waits. When you run away, he follows. When you forget his promises, he remembers every word. Know therefore that the Lord your God is God. He is the faithful God, keeping his covenant of love to 1,000 generations. Deuteronomy 7:9. He doesn't abandon ship when your faith is storm-tossed. He doesn't love you less when your confidence falters. He doesn't recoil when you mess up. He simply draws closer. You may feel inconsistent, but he never is. His commitment to you never weakens. His love never changes. Even in your worst moments, he remains steady. Even when your love wavers, his never does. Even when you let go, he still holds on. You can rest in that tonight, not in your ability to cling to him, but in his promise to never let go of you. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Lamentations 3:22-23. You are not carrying this relationship alone. You are not sustaining your faith by willpower. You are not loved only when you're at your best. He is faithful, always, when you are strong and when you are not. When your prayers are bold and when they're broken, he is faithful in all he does. Psalm 33:4. So breathe deeply tonight. Let go of the guilt. Let go of the pressure to be more than human. You are allowed to be weak, because he is strong. You are allowed to be uncertain, because he is sure. You are allowed to come as you are, because he already loves you as you are. Faithfulness is not something you perform for God. It's something he pours over you again and again. The Lord is faithful to all his promises and loving toward all he has made. Psalm 145:13. Sleep now, not because you figured it all out, but because you are held by the one who never changes. His mercy is your covering. His loyalty is your anchor. His faithfulness is your peace. The world teaches us to strive, to push harder, to carry more, to prove we're strong enough, smart enough, worthy enough, to hold everything together even when our hands are trembling. But God invites us to surrender, not because He wants us to give up, but because He wants us to come home, to rest, to remember we were never meant to carry it all alone. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11:28. Surrender isn't weakness. It's trust. It's courage in its quietest form. It's saying, I don't have to do this alone anymore. It's choosing to lay down your weight at the feet of the one who never gets tired. He doesn't love you more when you're productive. He doesn't value you more when you're performing. He just loves you fully, deeply, endlessly. He is not impressed by your performance. He is moved by your heart, by your willingness to say, I can't do this without you. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. Tonight, surrender the things you can't fix, the fears you can't outrun, the pressure you can't carry anymore. Surrender the plans that didn't go as expected. Surrender the need to have it all figured out. Lay them down. Let them go. Let God be God. Let Him take the place He was always meant to fill, your peace, your guide, your strength. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. Proverbs 3:5-6. You don't have to understand it all. You don't have to control the outcome. You just have to release it. There is beauty in surrender. There is freedom. There is rest. It doesn't mean nothing matters. It means you're choosing to trust the one who holds all things together. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying it alone. He delights in your surrender, not because He wants control, but because He wants to give you peace. Cast all your anxiety on Him, because He cares for you. 1 Peter 5:7. You can cast your burdens tonight. You can lay your head down in full assurance that He's still working while you sleep. Sleep in that surrender tonight. He's not asking you to figure it all out. He's just asking you to trust Him and let go. Let the weight fall. Let the striving cease. Let the quiet be holy. You are safe in surrender. As this night comes to a close and your body begins to relax, let your spirit rest in this simple promise. He will be with you in the morning. Whatever waits on the other side of sleep, whatever tasks, worries, or unknowns, you will not face them alone. Because of the Lord's great love we are not consumed, for His compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Lamentations 3:22-23. His mercy will rise with the sun. His peace will walk beside you into every room. His love will cover you before your feet ever hit the ground. You don't need to worry about tomorrow. You don't need to predict how it will unfold. You don't need to carry it now, because grace will meet you there. You only need to remember, He will be there. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life. Psalm 23:6. The same God who watched over you through this night will walk with you into the next step, the next challenge, the next conversation, the next unknown. He is already preparing the way. He is already softening hearts. He is already planting peace in places you haven't even stepped into yet. You are not waking up to face the world alone. You are waking up to walk beside the King. You are not stepping into chaos, unprotected. You are stepping into new mercies prepared just for you. The Lord Himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Deuteronomy 31:8. So sleep now, fully, freely. without fear of what comes next, without replaying what happened yesterday, without pressure to perform the moment your eyes open. You don't have to earn His presence tomorrow. You already have it. I lie down and sleep. I wake again because the Lord sustains me. Psalm 3:5. Let your mind exhale. Let your shoulders relax. Let your heart rest in the truth that you are covered. You are safe tonight. You will be safe tomorrow, because the one who holds time also holds you. He will be with you when the alarm sounds, when your eyes open, when the day begins, and He will not leave your side. No matter what tomorrow brings, He will walk every step beside you. He will speak peace into every moment. He will remain faithful from the first breath of your day to the last. Good night, beloved. You are loved. You are known. You are surrounded. And you are never, ever alone.